Hello all, and welcome back to the YouTube channel of All Day Chess. And yep, we got another astounding, awesome puzzle, and you do not want to miss it. So stay tuned and let's get started. So right away, this puzzle is a little bit more interesting. It's a pawn endgame, unlike the last puzzle, and let's just take a look at it. So we have a king on f3, pawn on d4, pawn on d6, pawn on g6, h5, h2, and g2. Right, but what's more important is this black king, it doesn't have many squares. It can't go to e7 because of this pawn, can't go to f7 because of this pawn, can't come to e5 because of this pawn, so it only has a couple squares. It can come to f5 or it can come to g5, right, and it's on the f6 square. So right away, we want to try and control the amount of squares black has. So we want to try and control the amount of squares the black king can go to. And we can do that by playing king to g4. The idea behind king to g4 is now black cannot move its king. Can't go anywhere. Can't go to any of the squares we mentioned before. But now also the f5 and g5 square are gone because of the white king. Right? So now black has a couple choices. They can either play h3, which, I mean, okay, but it just simply, like, blunders mate in 5, and it blunders a pawn. Right? More simply, you just take the pawn and you win the game. Right? So black's other option is to play e5. And here's where the fun begins. We're going to play d5. Because what this does is it protects the e6 square. Meaning, well, it guards the e6 square so that the black king can't come there. Right? And instead, maybe if we would have taken it, then the position, I don't know, it's still better for white, but like it's not as convincing, right? Because you take here, and then what do? You try and maybe make a pass pawn over here, and then they take. I mean, you're still winning, but it's not, I don't know, feels not as clean. What do you guys think? Right? So here instead, what we're going to play is we're going to play d5. We're going to go for the checkmate. This square is guarded by the king. This square is guarded by the pawn. Sorry. This square is guarded by the pawn, so the king can't go there. This square is also guarded by the pawn, so the king can't go there. And the king can't come to e6 or any other square, right? So now what we're going to play is... Oh, no, sorry. Now what black's going to play is they have two options again. They can do this, and we can simply take, or they can play e4. After e4, what can we do? Well, we can play king to f4. The idea behind this is to make sure this pawn doesn't get too far down and promote to a queen. And also, all of these squares are protected by the king, right? When our king was still on g4, the king had this e5 square to come to now that the pawn had moved. But now that we're playing king to f4, it doesn't have that square anymore. So now black, again, has two choices, e3 or h3. We've seen what happens with h3, so now let's look at e3. e3, right? And now let's see. This pawn is guarding this square. This pawn is guarding this square. This pawn is guarding this square. And the king is guarding the rest of the squares. Like, what a cool position this is. Just to see how all the pawns are working together. It's just mind-boggling. Right? So this pawn's going to promote to a queen soon, which is kind of bad. But do not panic. We're going to play g4. The idea behind g4 is to go for g5 checkmate, right? For example, if they play h3, well then g5 is checkmate. If they play e2, then g5 is also checkmate. So what we're going to play is after g4, then they have to play en passant and take our pawn. But do not worry, we're going to simply capture back. Do not capture back with your king or anything, because then the position is a draw actually. Even though black has less pawns, it's still a draw. Because after e2, king f2, then black comes over here, and while you gobble all these pawns, black starts gobbling all your pawns, right? And it becomes a draw. So instead, what will happen is we do not want to take back with the king. And maybe if we try and take king takes e3, that's actually horrible because now not only are we winning, we're not winning. Not only are we drawing, we're also not drawing. We're losing. Simply after g takes h2, black's going to promote and we cannot stop it. So that's why we have to play h takes g3. And now black is going to play e2. They're about to queen. We can't stop the queen. But we're going to play g4. And after they queen, we have an amazing checkmate. An unstoppable, amazing checkmate, which is g5. Wow, what a checkmate. Look at this. So the king can't come back because of this pawn. King can't come back because of this pawn. King can't come here because of the pawn. And king can't come here because of the king. King can't come here because of the king. And it's giving check by this pawn is protected by this king. Sorry, this is protected. This pawn is protected by the king. It's just amazing. And I really hope you guys like that checkmate, and I'll see you in the next video.